right here.
Why was Halleck had such jealousy, maybe, of Grant? What can you talk about that?
I assume this is mine. Or do you
Go
want
ahead.
You want
Go
to
ahead.
I assume you're talking about in terms of the siege when he had Grant as second in
When he
command,
was fired.
basically. Well, he was fired earlier after Fort Donelson. Not really fired, but he was really booted up to a larger strategic command rather than tactical command of the expedition up the Tennessee River. My take on it is, and you deal with this as well. You can talk about it as well. My take is that there are a couple of things here. Jealousy, all historians have dealt with jealousy, and that's, certainly part of us. How many of us have been involved in, somebody, jealous of what's going on or a position or something? That's just human nature that's at work there. What John Marszalek brings out in his biography of Halleck is a little more than just jealousy, though, and it has to do more with kind of the way that Halleck operates and the way that Grant operates. In terms of Grant is this swashbuckling guy from Galena, that worked in his father's dry goods store, and he doesn't wear the proper uniform. He just wears a private's coat with stars and all of that. On the other hand, Halleck is by the book. He wants everything done proper and with the correct protocol. Got to be done by the book. And by the way, he wrote the book. Halleck did. He wrote the Elements of Military Science. So Halleck and Grant almost are speaking different languages, and you almost see sometimes that they're talking past each other when they're dealing with each other, and a lot of it probably is that Halleck just doesn't think Grant is doing things right and proper, and he as John Marszalek says, he's sloppy in the way he does things. The classic example, the Siege of Corinth. Grant gets this letter from Halleck telling him that your command is not organized properly, and they're not doing things right, and they're not folding their letters correctly. How are you supposed to win a war if you're not folding your letters correctly? I think Steve Woodworth came to that conclusion in his book. But how are you supposed to win without folding your letters? They're just talking past each other. You may have.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I mean, it's first of all, after Donelson, I mean, the idea to sort of expound on what you said, Grant gets kicked upstairs. But Grant very well understands that what's really happened is the rug's been pulled out from under him. I mean, Halleck can put whatever title, give Grant whatever title he wants, but Grant understands the reality, as happens when they actually get to Pittsburgh Landing, when Grant really has no authority. Charles Smith is in command of the army. The old man is a wonderful character, General Smith, who was commandant of cadets at West Point. He's much older than these young soldiers who now all outrank him. Sherman, Grant, they were students of his at West Point. So Smith is in command at Pittsburgh Landing when they first get there, and actually it's Smith who determines where the various Union divisions will set up camp. Then Grant is reappointed and shows up, and Smith is sort of relieved. I mean, Smith understands what Halleck's all about. But the jealousy thing, I mean, I do buy into a certain amount of that. One of the things I say, and I think Sherman knows Halleck very, very well. They were pals in the early days. They traveled together. They were in Rio de Janeiro. I mean, they were very close. And so Sherman gets what Halleck's about. The point of view in my book is Sherman's. And Sherman is looking at Grant, and he understands that perhaps Grant didn't pay quite enough homage to Halleck after Grant's victory at Fort Donelson, that it should have been more, Grant should have recognized it was Halleck's victory at Fort Donelson, and there's not enough of that coming from Grant. But certainly, I mean, Halleck's in St. Louis. He rarely leaves St. Louis. I mean, he is, I'll tell you the comparison, Patton and Eisenhower. Now, the difference is I admire Eisenhower. I have less admiration for Halleck. But there's a difference between a warrior and an administrator. Grant is a warrior. Halleck is an administrator. To the nth degree. Eisenhower is a much better administrator and wins the war, and I would debate that with any historian. But it's sort of the same idea. Patton has no use for Eisenhower. Eisenhower has to deal with Patton. Same situation exists between Halleck and Grant. Grant is a soldier. Halleck is the guy who writes the book.
We are coming. We have a few minutes left, and so I'm gonna probably give you a chance to ask the questions after we've ended our broadcast. But I want to get to the Battle of Corinth, the most significant fighting at Corinth is that dramatic battle of April 3rd and 4th, 1862. So, Tim, I'm going to give you a chance to pitch some analysis here. And who fought more effectively on October 3rd? The Confederates attacking or the Federals defending? And how did Van Dorn come around and get that attack started?
The battle that takes place in October, just to give you the broadest overview, the Federals have taken Corinth in May. Then the Confederates decide we're going to come back and retake Corinth as part really of this larger Confederate sweep that occurs in the fall of 1862. You've got Lee invading Maryland, you've got Bragg invading Kentucky, and now you've got Van Dorn and Price in Mississippi, supposedly invading West Tennessee and eventually western Kentucky all the way to Paducah. You can't leave a large garrison in Corinth in your rear, though, and invade, just like Lee can't leave the garrison at Harper's Ferry. You've got to take care of that. Now, Nashville is a little bit of an anomaly. Bragg leaves Nashville in his rear, and it doesn't work out for him either. But they've got to take care of Corinth. That's what leaves the Confederates there. The whole plan is based on surprise and speed. Van Dorn, in fact, marches north of Corinth and then comes back down to the northeast to attack in an effort to try to trick the Federals and make them think that he's marching on northward. Speed and surprise, neither one of those is really available to Van Dorn. He's found out very quickly. He's not able to march as quickly as he wants to. And as a result, I kind of analyzed the Battle of Corinth as another Shiloh. It is fought pretty much the same way that Shiloh is fought. If you look at Shiloh, two-day battle, of course, what Grant is doing, he's trading space for time. He's withdrawing on the first day, trading space for time, trying to eat up daylight until he can go into the last line of defense at nightfall. If he can make it to nightfall, he's got reinforcements coming in terms of Buell and Lew Wallace. Rosecrans is doing the same thing. If he can fall back all day on the 3rd, October 3rd at Corinth, fall back into that inner line of defense, if he can eat up enough daylight, he's got reinforcements coming in the form of James McPherson from Jackson with a small division. He's got Hurlbut and EOC Ord coming in from Bolivar to cut off the Confederate retreat. So he's got reinforcements coming in. So Rosecrans knows if he can hold out to the next day, he's got help coming and he can probably win the battle. And that's exactly the way the battle plays out. It's Shiloh all over again.
The Confederates have success on the first day, but they fail to finish the job.
Exactly. And there is some debate over whether they should have continued on the first day, just like Beauregard and all of that at Shiloh. Very
then there is
similar.
There is one character. If Albert Sidney Johnston is the tragic character of Shiloh, there is a tragic character in Civil War memory, especially Corinth memory, in Colonel Rogers.
William P. Rogers. We had ancestors in the 2nd Texas over there. Exactly. I thought you were going to start to say Van Dorn. If Van Dorn had only been a shot, the first day of Corinth, it would have done the Confederacy wonders, probably. But he wasn't. But yes, Colonel Rogers of the 2nd Texas, a very, very fascinating story of that.
Mm-hmm. We're going to run out of time. I'm going to tell you in a few minutes we're going to talk about the upcoming shows. I want to thank those of you who bought books. We're going to shout out to some of you, but I want to give I gave Tim a last question. Jeff, I want to give you a last question. I'm going to try to get you. What do you think about gotcha question?
Wonderful.
So we're going to try to get you. Okay. Who was your favorite Confederate general to write? Lee or Johnston? Remember, Chicago is in the West.
Well, neither one of them would be my favorite general.
Really?
To write. Stonewall Jackson.
Stonewall Jackson?
Stonewall Jackson was, when I started Gods and Generals, I patterned in, the idea was to write a prequel to the Killer Angels. And of course, I'm looking at Longstreet and Lee and Jeb Stuart and all the people who are at Gettysburg. And of course, the one character not at Gettysburg is Stonewall. Mm-hmm. And I felt, this sounds maybe obnoxious to say that, I feel like I had discovered Stonewall. I mean, I sort of stumbled into this man, and certainly not the first. But I realized this is a character I could embrace. I really loved this man, and I enjoyed writing the character. And I use the word love, and I don't use that loosely because it's part of the ingredients of writing these stories. I have to feel I love the character in order to, as we were talking earlier, put words in their mouths and feel that I know this man. The problem built into that is ultimately I had to kill him. That's the single hardest thing I've ever done. And I went through that same process with Rommel, in the World War II stories, with the Red Baron in the World War I story. I mean, because I love these characters, and then I have to write their death. And so clearly, to me, Stonewall Jackson was the character I embraced, I think, above all others.
Jeff, I'm going to get you started. We need you to sign some books for us. We've sold a lot of the books, and thank you for that.
Thank you.
And Tim, I want you to do some work for us as well. Get that pen warmed up. And give you that. And I want to thank those of you who pre-ordered your books. Paul is watching from Springfield. Marshall's in Fairfax, Virginia. Thank you. John in Lexington, South Carolina. Michael in Riverside, Illinois. Mona is watching from Adamsville, Tennessee.
Hi, Mona.
Hello, Mona. And he has War on the Waters, a look at the naval part of the Civil War. In November, Amy Greenberg will be here with The Wicked War, a new look at the war in the U.S.-Mexican War. That's you already said that's one of your favorite novels.
Yes.
And we didn't even get to talk about it today. What's the title of your?
Gone for Soldiers.
Gone for Soldiers. Has all the same characters.
Right.
But 12
all
years
young
younger.
lieutenants right out of West Point.
It's fascinating. Thank you very much for joining us at Virtual Book Signing. Thank you all for coming to Abraham Lincoln Bookshop today in person. Thank you to the staff. And we will see you again soon on Virtual Book Signing.